Well, it's dangerous and it's killing our kids. We're talking about heroin, and it keeps making a comeback as the drug of choice for our teens. Police in New Jersey say that 3 students at Triton Regional High School overdosed. 2 of them died. And it's only getting worse. A recent government study actually shows heroin use has increased 80% among our teens, especially the suburban middle-class kid next door. Caroline Casina lost her son John because of heroin. He died last year at the age of 20. She's on a mission now to save other families. She joins me on the phone. Caroline, when did your son John first try heroin?
I believe he was just at the end of 17, beginning of 18. He was a senior in high school. And what the gentleman was saying before about it's middle America. It's, you know, it's not just the fringes of society that are being impacted. It's upper middle class suburban American kids. And they're high school kids that are usually introduced to heroin through other drugs. It's being laced into, as one other speaker was saying, it is being laced into the pot. It's also being introduced as something other than heroin. Many of the kids that I speak to now are being told that it's cocaine. They're being told it's something called Cloud 9. They do not understand that it's heroin that they're taking.
And Caroline, I think what we were talking about as well is it's making a comeback into families that we normally don't think would ever have to worry about this. I mean, your son was a successful, handsome young man in this wonderful family with a mom and dad that loves him. So what's the reality check for parents? Because I think a lot of parents think it's not going to be my kid.
Right.
Well, I think we need to do a better job of informing ourselves. We need to do our research and find out, you know, like somebody had said before, heroin is user-friendly. I think people of our generation, or my generation, I should say, we made an assumption that this was a drug that was just, you know, regulated to the inner cities. It could only be shot up. It is user-friendly now. It's cheap and incredibly addictive. You can snort it, you can smoke it, you can shoot it. It comes in many forms and colors.
How is he able to hide it from you, Caroline?
I'm sorry, what?
How is he able to hide it from you?
Well, unfortunately, with any addiction, it starts off slow. These kids are experimenting around. You know, they see their other friends doing it. It's a quick, easy high. They're usually able to hide it, at least initially. By the time we as parents start really seeing the signs, they are deep into the addiction. This is when you start seeing the physical signs that are showing up. You know, you can see it in their faces, you can see it in the pupils of their eyes. But there are many kids that I have met who started, you know, their addiction cycle, and their parents were clueless. One thing I would definitely say to all parents is not only do we need to inform ourselves as to what heroin and other opiates are, we need to do a better job of informing our kids what is really out there. The problem is just say no is not working.
Yeah, it's not enough.
You know,
it's not enough.
The problem is these kids, they see other kids doing other kinds of drugs, and unfortunately, that is how they're getting roped into this. My son very famously said to me, he's like, Mom, nobody wakes up one morning and says, today's the day I want to become a heroin addict. They don't understand what it is they're doing, what it is they're taking. They think they're being given something that's quote-unquote safe, and then before you know it, they're caught up. It's a marketing scam. This stuff is being marketed to our young people, and they are being victimized to satisfy a business objective.
Caroline Casina, so glad you called in. I appreciate you. And as you heard, Caroline's son didn't survive heroin, but our next guest did. I want to bring Adi Jaffe into the conversation, former addict, addiction expert now. Adi, I don't know if you've been able to hear our whole conversation thus far, but I think a lot of parents wondering what the heck they can do when they suspect that something is not right with their kid.
Yeah, I think this is a great conversation topic to have, you know, as your former guest, and I really have to, again, applaud her efforts of being able to take this tragedy that her son had gone through and be able to make something good out of it. In the industry, we've been seeing more and more heroin and opiate addiction issues come up in the last 5 to 10 years, and we've sort of forgotten about them since the 1990s, and so a lot of people aren't really aware of what to look for, and I think this is an important kind of conversation to have. So let me first start with a couple of things. You can tell even before somebody gets addicted to heroin, there are some signs about heroin use, and parents just need to be aware of them. So a couple of things are pinpoint pupils, right? If their pupils get really, really constricted, that's probably one big sign. Another one is if you see these sort of alternating patterns of high energy and lethargy, or very low energy. That can also be another sign. A big sign that they might be injecting might be somebody who's wearing long sleeves, even though it's really hot outside. You don't really get to see their arms anymore. That can be another good indication. But one thing that hasn't been touched on up to now, I think, is massively important, and that's prescription drugs. When we look at surveys like SAMHSA's Monitoring the Future survey, we see that only about 0.8% to 1% of teens, or really anybody over the age of 12, is using heroin, but something like 3 to 5% are using prescription opiates like OxyContin and Vicodin and all those kind of Percocet, all those drugs. And if you want to look for a gateway drug, those are the gateway drugs to heroin, and I think what we need to do is a better job of starting to get those out of the equation.